They came to redefine the world of rock and roll. Whether it was David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar, or Gary Cherone leading the band, each brought a special flavor to the music. The career of Van Halen was as tumultuous as it was lucrative. Standing the test of time, the band received multiple awards, as well as going platinum 13 times. Van Halen is a band as synonymous with rock as they are controversy, and their ever-rotating cast of lead vocalists meant that their style and presentation were ever-changing as well. With over 56 million albums sold in the US alone, Van Halen is one of the best-selling bands of all time. Through all the trials and tribulations the band endured, their fame and influence in rock is cemented. The very definition of late 20th century rock. This is the mammoth legacy of Van Halen. The Van Halen brothers, Alex and Eddie, were born in Amsterdam in 1953 and 1955, moving to Pasadena, California in 1963.
And you all went to school or something like that?
Yeah, well, we were all going to different schools and living in a generally the same area of California. None of us are from California. That's how come we don't sound like the Eagles, yeah. But we just wanted to get discovered, and LA is a good place to do it. You know, there's a lot of music, a lot of rock bands, a lot of everything going on in Los Angeles.
The primary focus of Van Halen was and has always been the musicianship of Eddie Van Halen. He and his brother Alex, and a lot of the people I worked with in Los Angeles from '76 through 1992 knew the Van Halens and spoke of them highly, said they were great people, went to high school with the guys and so on and so forth.
The brothers were shown to be proficient in music from the very beginning, with both learning instruments from a young age. Eddie learned to play piano by ear, and Alex learned guitar. However, when both learned drums, they became frustrated with each other.
Bizarrely, Eddie was the great guitar virtuoso, was drawn to the drums, and his brother, the great drummer that powered the band forward, was the guitar player. I was once backstage at the Starwood, August 1976, and I got to talking with Alex, the drummer, and he said, "We're this band, Van Halen." I said, "Oh, I've heard of you. The first album's not out yet." So I had this great chat with Alex, and he says, "No, actually, I started out as the guitar player, and my brother," I said, "Your brother's got this great reputation as a guitar player." He says, "My brother started out on drums." And I said, "What happened there?" And here's the Van Halen brothers story of how Eddie got on guitar. So Alex told me backstage at the Starwood this wonderful story. He said, Eddie, he would go out, Alex would go out. He says, my brother Eddie, being younger, was stuck at home, and my parents couldn't stand him banging on the drums. So Eddie would go in the bedroom that we shared and pick up the guitar. He practiced guitar scales, which I thought was fascinating. And I said, well, how did you find out that it was time to swap instruments? And Alex Van Halen told me, I came back from partying with the high school kids one night, and my little brother had sat on the bed. He was sitting on the bed when I left the house. And by the time I got home, my younger brother knew all the Eric Clapton licks to Crossroads in order from the very famous Cream recording of the song Crossroads, in order and how to play the song. And he said, that was the moment I thought, we've got to switch instruments. This is just ridiculous. He's getting better and better and better on the guitar. And now he can play Crossroads note for note, the two Clapton solos in order, note for note. And he said, that was it. We had to switch instruments. And the rock world is much better for it.
See, you have to remember, Ed, I used to play guitar, and Ed played drums. And to make a long story short...
He got better, so I played his guitar.
But the moment he picked up the guitar, it didn't take a genius to figure out that he had a connection with it.
It was just, it was just kind of a natural thing for me, just like drums for you. I'm very grateful to be blessed with the gift. And
I think if you take yourself too seriously, that's when it becomes a problem.
By 1964, the brothers started playing together as a band with their friend Mark Stone, calling themselves Mammoth.
Van Halen initially started their popularity by playing everywhere. Because one thing about Van Halen is they never took themselves quite so seriously. They played their gigs with a smile. And Van Halen, if you look at Eddie and David Lee Roth, they're grinning a lot. They're having the times of their lives a lot. It's not superficial to them. It's very serious business, but they're having a wonderful time. But how they really got going is a tried and true method I would recommend to anybody. They played everywhere and anywhere.
When renting a sound system from David Lee Roth, who at the time was in his own small band, the brothers were so taken by his charisma and energy that they offered him to join the band as the lead singer. Later, adding college friend Michael Anthony to the band in a guitar and bass role. By 1973, they had officially changed their name to Van Halen. And for the next 3 years, the band played throughout Pasadena, Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles in clubs and hotel bars. Eddie especially became well known for his unique and groundbreaking guitar playing technique. After seeing the band play at the Starwood Club, Kiss's Gene Simmons financed a demo recording session for Van Halen.
So I offered to fly them to New York to Electric Lady Studios and produce their demo, which I did, 15 songs. And the arrangements and the performance pretty much winds up being the first and the second album.
Which later led them to being signed to Warner Brothers Records.
They were signed to me exclusively, to Man of a Thousand Faces, one of my companies. And I brought them in to Bill Aucoin, our then manager, and the rest of the band. And I said, let's do the smart thing. Let's take a new band under our wing. This is going to be the next big American band. Nobody else believed it. So I tore up the contract and I said, guys, love you. I'm a big fan. Go and get them. Within 2 or 3 weeks, they got a deal at Warner Brothers, and the rest is history.
Van Halen's first self-titled album was released in 1978 to critical acclaim, reaching platinum within only 5 months of release. The self-titled debut album was a declaration. Eddie's guitar playing defied conventions, giving birth to a whole new era of guitar heroes. Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo, Interruption, is widely considered to be one of the greatest of all time, due to his popularization of the tapping technique to playing the guitar. During this era, Eddie also created his iconic guitar, known as the Frankenstrat, something that Eddie would constantly use and modify for the rest of his career. With David Lee Roth's flamboyant personality leading the charge, Van Halen became more than a band. They became a phenomenon. From then on, the band would release a new album every year for the next 5 years, as well as constant touring around the world. The fifth studio album, 1984, brought their biggest single, and what ultimately became their signature song, Jump. The success of Jump brought the band to a whole new level of fame, a song that is still getting regular play to this day and is widely regarded as the signature song of the band. Jump was a song that not only catapulted the band into a new stratosphere, but was also a departure from the regular guitar-centric rock that defined the band's earlier repertoire. The sonic synth riff, introduced by Eddie Van Halen, transformed the band's sonic landscape, blending rock with pop and reaching a whole new fan base, introducing the band to a broader audience than ever before. The infectious chorus, coupled with Roth's dynamic and upbeat vocal performance, has made this song stand the test of time among an already impressive catalogue of records, leaving an indelible mark on pop culture.
Watch a lady go. Dance and get to higher than anything else she knows.
Following the 1984 tour, the members were exhausted and cracks were beginning to show.
There was a slight dichotomy in the band once the band was up and running. But Eddie wanted to push the music into expand the palette direction. He didn't want to just be a guitar hero. And David Lee Roth always had sort of a pop thing going, catchy songs. And so that album came out, and Jump was this huge hit, and that's the good news. And the bad news is you start seeing the dichotomy, the yin and the yang of Eddie Van Halen wanting to push the music and be this virtuoso guy, and David Lee Roth, who is, to me, if not others, David Lee Roth is the kind of guy that if he has to stand on his head to entertain the audience, he's going to do it. He is an entertainer with a capital E. So you have the split that we started to see.
By the end of the band's 1984 tour, Roth decided to quit the band, with members giving different reasons for the split. Despite Roth's departure, though, the foundation built by him was too strong to be broken just by him leaving. And so, despite lacking a lead singer, Van Halen would continue into the late 80s with someone new leading the group.
Come the late 1980s, the drink and drug partying habits of the guys in Van Halen were starting to grate. Michael Anthony had an epiphany, as they say now, and became sober in 1987. So Michael Anthony, the great bass player, because he was great, sacked or not, he was a great bass player. He became sober.
When Dave quit the band, Alex, Mike, and I were just pretty devastated, really. We were just sitting there going, now what, you know? I mean, here we've worked with a guy for 11 years, so to speak, and he just kind of like took off.
David's departure meant that the band didn't have a lead vocalist. As the world waited for the next chapter of Van Halen, the band invited numerous other musicians to lead, including Patti Smith of Scandal and Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates. Ultimately, though, it was Sammy Hagar who would breathe new life into the band. Eddie was introduced to Sammy Hagar in 1985. He agreed to become the band's new lead. This marked a whole new sound for the band, proving the band could reinvent themselves, yet still maintain popularity.
Sammy Hagar came in from the band Montrose, and they had a whole nother second wave of success. Hagar had been in his own acts, and he'd been the lead singer of Montrose with Ronnie Montrose, another guitar virtuoso. They hadn't done that well, but he was a great singer. Sammy Hagar played good guitar as well. You know, David Lee Roth was a singer and did acrobatics and high kicks that were of gymnastic status. Sammy Hagar was more of a musician, and I was impressed to see them playing guitar riffs back and forth, and Hagar's guitar actually being an integral part of the sound. He didn't have that with David Lee Roth.
Well, we had a toothache for about 11 years, and finally went to the dentist, had it extracted, and now we've got a crown with a gold cap on it.
Sammy brought another level of musical prowess to the band. Though he lacked the flamboyant and boisterous acrobatic personality of David Lee Roth, he instead brought his guitar playing and powerful vocal performances to the table, differentiating the two leads and eras, with fans arguing to this day about who did it best. However, even though Roth was gone from the band, the animosity between him and the rest of Van Halen, including the new lead Sammy Hagar, bled throughout the news at the time, with the two parties taking constant shots at each other.
Shed a tear and said, just like any band, we're having a career difference here. We're having a musical difference, and we're going to go our own ways. And we cried and we hugged, and he split. And 2 weeks later, I'm reading in Rolling Stone what an asshole I am, and how poor little Eddie was forced to spend the last 12 years of his life living a lie. It's like a National Enquirer or something. And here comes his wife, to back it up, and on and on and on. So I stayed quiet for 6 months, 7 months.
In 1986, Van Halen's sixth studio album, 5150, was recorded in a studio built by Eddie in his backyard. When released, it became a bestseller, becoming the band's first #1 album on the Billboard charts, proving that Hagar could carry the band.
All right, so you win. Billy's got a shirt on.
The first time we got together was like we've been together for years. It was incredible. I don't mean to put a certain person down, but it's like there's no more limits, no more governor, It's like just we can do anything we want.
After releasing OU812 in 1988, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge in 1991, and Balance in 1995, the group's 8th, 9th, and 10th albums continued to enjoy their success and relevancy in pop culture. Winning a Grammy in 1992 for Best Hard Rock Performance, as well as continuing to tour around the world. However, tension began brewing between Hagar and the Van Halen brothers when making a compilation album, leading to Hagar ultimately departing in 1996, leaving the band again without a lead singer to carry Van Halen.
I was called by Eddie on Father's Day morning, Eddie just goes, you really frustrate me, you never do anything I asked you to do, and I'm going, well, yeah, I do. It's like, there really wasn't a problem like this in our whole 11 years of creativity. And he said, but you never do what I asked you to do, and I got so frustrated, I went and got Roth, and we've been working with him, and it's been working out great. And he goes, and you've always been a solo artist anyway, you might as well just go back to being a solo artist. Quote, unquote, exactly that. And I went, wow.
Sammy Hagar leaving Van Halen was a huge blow, though the band were confident in gaining a third lead and continuing the band's success.
I got to tell you, when we worked with these guys, we loved them, they were great, and we had a lot of fun. you know? But just like in any relationship, sometimes things just go sour. And it's that simple, you know?
We're both very talented, and we had a lot of great times together, and I respect them both on a musical level.
After a short stint with Roth returning as lead, recording 2 new songs for the band, he was again asked to leave the band after the rest of the group wasn't happy with his antics on camera during the MTV Video Music Awards.
Well, what happened at the MTV Awards that changed the nature of your relationship with David?
It wasn't his on-stage antics, which for one I thought was embarrassing.
And disrespectful to Beck?
Very disrespectful to Beck, as he's trying to thank, you know, people, his acceptance speech, whatever. Days behind him doing his shtick, you know, and it's like, I don't know. To me, it was embarrassing. But it was more so backstage, where he basically spit in my face.
Van Halen's next lead singer was Gary Cherone in 1996, the former frontman to hard rock band Extreme.
It's odd that bands like Van Halen, who have this great success, that there's not more of a magnetic pull to stay at the center. It's almost like they reverse polarity, if you allow me to use this metaphor, and they're pushing guys away. You know, Michael Anthony's eventually pushed away, and they have Wolfgang, Eddie's then 17-year-old son, come in on bass. It's sad. David Lee Roth, a dear buddy with Eddie Van Halen, he splits and goes. Sammy Hagar comes in, he's an integral part of the sound. He goes. To record Van Halen 3, which is out of order of the albums, by the way, they came in, they got a guy named Gary Cherone. Cherone would be, he was the lead singer of a band called Extreme. Gary Cherone comes in, and he should have been a good fit. And he did the album Van Halen 3, but it was a bit experimental and a bit out there. Perhaps weighted more toward Eddie Van Halen's previously expressed desire to be more musical and less just a 4/4 rock and roll band, and getting away from some of the shredding on the guitar and expanding the palette a little bit.
The result was the 11th studio album, Van Halen 3. Which proved to be the worst-selling album of Van Halen's entire career. Though the Gary Cherone era is widely disliked by fans, it's still worth praise for the band's attempt to reinvent themselves for a third time and create music that was on the more experimental side of things. Van Halen 3 stands as a testament to the willingness to evolve that Van Halen held.
To a lot of us on the scene, it's like you've got something so beautiful going. Why is there all this tension within the band? But then there's also the argument in a band like Van Halen, when you have strong personalities, that everybody wants their say. The argument being that the friction between Roth and Van Halen, or Van Halen and Hagar, or Michael Anthony with the Van Halen brothers, that friction creates the sparks that ignite the paper and get the house to really burn.
The ensuing tour was poorly attended as well. Cherone was quickly dismissed by the band in 1999. Eddie later said that Warner Brothers forced him to let go of Cherone after the poor sales and concert attendance. However, unlike both Hagar and Roth, Gary left the band on good terms and stayed in contact with Van Halen. Van Halen's third lead singer leaving and the health issues of other band members essentially left the status of the band unknown going into the new millennium. The group that dominated and had been a powerhouse of rock for decades suddenly went silent. During the extended hiatus of the band, each member embarked on their own solo work. And for fans, the hiatus was a period of uncertainty as to the future of Van Halen. This, combined with Eddie's hip surgery he just received, led to an extended hiatus of Van Halen, with no new music or official statements being made going into the new millennium. In 2000, Eddie announced that he had been diagnosed with tongue cancer, which he attributed to heavy alcohol and drug use in his early years. After the band parted ways with their label, Warner Brothers, Roth and Hagar toured together for their Heavyweight Champs of Rock and Roll tour, to the surprise of most fans, considering the past animosity between the two, drawing huge crowds and attracting media attention. Ultimately, though, Van Halen was still without a lead singer. In 2004, a greatest hits collection, The Best of Both Worlds, was released, leading to a tour that had the band recruit Hagar back into the group just for the tour, after which he left back to his own band.
Van Halen live Friday, June 11th at Greensboro Coliseum in concert. Incredible. Reserve seat tickets are on sale now. Coliseum box office online at tickets.com or charged by phone. Friday, June 11th. The real rock is back. Van Halen.
Plus, it's been a while, but Van Halen is ready to rock the Greensboro Coliseum. We're going to tell you how you can still be a part of this rock and roll event.
You know what? I wish that would have happened before this, because, you know, this night is so special. But you never know. With this band, you never know what's going to happen. I know you all know that right now. I'm a never say never kind of guy. I'm here. I'm ready to play. Sammy and I are out there. People want to hear it. Sammy and I are out there, you know, giving the fans what they want.
No, quite honestly, I planned on, in the middle of that, after doing the 50-some shows I did last year, I planned on taking this year off and just hanging with my family and traveling around, and haven't done that for a long time. And then this came up, and I kind of wish I would have booked a tour, but I'm going to tour from my birthday in October. I'm going to kind of just go through the rest of next year. And I'm sure Mike will be out there, unless Van Halen wants to do it. I'm not being funny. If we all grew up, and including me and Mike, and all of us can all grow up, and maybe all of us do it together, I'm down with that anytime, any place, anywhere. But let's just hope that Eddie comes out the other side, you know, better than ever, and I think that'll make everything a lot easier. I don't know. I totally encourage the thing with Dave. I think that if Van Halen has any move that they should do in their lives for the fans right now, is to do a reunion with Dave. They've done it with me. We've done it, everything you can possibly do. I think the fans need a Dave reunion, and then, like I said, if we all grow up, we can all get together and do it for real. Honestly, yeah. I am, yes. Dave likes this kind of stuff.
I was waiting for him to come busting through at some point during the speech, you know. That's Dave.
After being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007, the band announced a new reunion tour featuring David Lee Roth back as frontman, with a controversial lineup change as Wolfgang Van Halen replaced Michael Anthony on bass.
I heard you missed me. I came right back as fast as I could.
So Eddie Van Halen by this time is now drinking and drugging too much. That's part of the problem with Roth and Hagar. Mainly musical difficulties when they left, but differences when they left. But part of the problem, and Eddie had a bad set to with his son backstage after a gig. Remember, Wolfgang joined the band at age 17, replacing Anthony. So when you have a set to with your son, who you love, there's no doubt that the father-son were a beloved unit. You know. But I think the next day, that was when Eddie realized, I've got to get clean. He went through 2 rehab patches, and the first time fell back, and I think the second time achieved sobriety and struggled to stop cigarettes, which everyone tells me is murderous. But it's the story of so many bands. You're nervous to go on stage and you need something to take off the edge. And even if you don't do that, sometimes after it's over, you want to relax. So you start drinking and maybe drugging after the show, and now you can't go to sleep, so you take something to knock you out, then the next morning you take something to wake up. So Van Halen sort of went into all the pitfalls of the touring rock and roll band and the great success. You know, you're offered all these things free, drugs and whatever free. And it is a tragedy that the drink and drugs went through the band as closely and as deadly as it did, because they really should have stayed more sober and more creative for longer with all of these set twos. It's just a shame that Van Halen, like so many bands, have a legacy. Besides the great record sales and musicality and joy they brought to the public, they have a legacy of a fair amount of bitchiness. And that's sad, because these people are family that are in the band with you. You know, you may argue with your brother or your sister, your mom or your dad, but they're still family. And a band that's been together 12 years, 18 years, 22 years, and guys start arguing, not good.
The tour ultimately grossed over $93 million, the most successful tour in the band's history. Seeing this success, the band decided to cut a new album, their first since Van Halen 3 in 1998, in what would become their 12th and final studio album. A Different Kind of Truth was released in 2012 and received generally positive reception from fans and critics, debuting at number 2 on the Billboard Top 200.
Swap meet Sally, tramps down cat, mouse wife to bombshell in the time it took to get that new tattoo. Tattoo, tattoo. Tattoo, tattoo. Show me your dragon magic. Tattoo, tattoo. So autobiographic. Best believe that needle hurt you. Best to see.
We always stayed away from television because of the sound difficulties and because we are particular to the way we've been photographed and the way that we are recorded because we always did it ourselves. I'll give you an example. One of the reasons that so much of history looks majestic to us all the way up until, say, the early 60s, around 1963, is that all of the cameras, Mamiya Secor, Yashica, the famous Rolleiflex, etc., were too heavy to pick up. So you had to hold them belt buckle high. And every black and white picture all the way up through Vietnam was shot here, looking down through a viewfinder that goes here. So you're looking up, ground to sky angle. It makes everything, every president, every actress, every wartime picture look of majesty because you're looking up at it. That right there is such a problematic issue when we go to shoot just a common video and you got to tell somebody, we're not looking for 1-minute edits. Who cared about Fred Astaire's face? Did you ever see it? Did you ever care? No, and neither did I. But you saw the whole body, and you're not going to get that unless you're doing low angles coming from here, and it's a constant fight. Most television, they just stand and go, boom, and you're from here up. I'm only interesting from here down. So we avoided television. Playing lead bass and drums kind of music, if it's not digital, whoa. We got Bob Clearmountain back there, who's the producer for the Stones and Springsteen and U2. The list is endless. He goes all the way back to Kool and the Gang, who I hired to open up for Van Halen on the last tour as well. But does that answer your question?
Van Halen supported this album with another worldwide tour, one of which was in the Tokyo Dome in Japan. Later released as the group's first ever live album.
I've been based in Tokyo for the last 2 years, and I rode my bike to the Tokyo Dome for a concert with 43,000 of our friends. That's the closest I could get the Van Halens to productive that week. We mixed the record, and then the implication being, let's go on the road. This is a band that has so many stars crossed and has a history that is so colorful. You know, we stop and start. The hijinks here are like something from a fucking Lucille Ball comedy or something. Getting the band on the road, about every 3.5 years, like a James Bond movie. You can set your watch to that any sooner, and it becomes, weren't you just here? You never want to hear that. It was like the third pirate movie with Depp. Weren't you just here?
In 2020, following his long battle with cancer and a litany of other medical issues, Eddie Van Halen passed away at the age of 65. Just 10 days after Mark Stone passed away of cancer too. Wolfgang later confirmed that Van Halen had officially ended, stating, "You can't have Van Halen without Eddie Van Halen."
One of the lovely things that one should remark about when you talk about Van Halen is before Eddie died, his recent death, everyone had a kind word with him, particularly David Lee Roth, who was, heartbroken. and it's been eloquent in his remarks on his old bandmate, Eddie Van Halen. And when Eddie embraced sobriety, in a way, if you allow me to be highfalutin, he embraced adulthood, because at his deathbed, he's got his family around. Valerie Bertinelli, his wife of 20-something years, they subsequently divorced, she was there. And so many of his friends knew he was going and had a chance to say goodbye. That's the good news. I only wish there had been some of the lesser partying and stuff going on, but Eddie was a drinker and a smoker from dot. One thing that some of the long-term Van Halen fans might want to know is I have several friends who are professional roadies, and we went out to have dinner once in Los Angeles, and eating with roadies is amazing because no stories are about so much musical genius or this. They're just about what towns you went to, the size of the PA. The monitors were flush on the stage so the audience could see the guys without the monitors blocking, just crazy stuff. And one thing I really enjoyed is we were talking about people that had succumbed to drink or drugs and rock and roll or pop music in general and how sad that is. And this one guy was saying, oh no, David Lee Roth. And I said, what are you talking about, David Lee Roth? I saw one thing, he would, as part of the shtick, he'd come out with a Jack Daniels bottle, crack the seal, and drink it in like 2 gulps, a whole bottle of whiskey. I mean, come on. Well, he's got to be an alcoholic at some point to do that on stage. And this roadie was laughing, said, no, that was iced tea. And I went, you what? And he says, here it is, folks. He says, yeah, David Lee Roth's not stupid. He had iced tea, the American concoction. It's not warm, it's not hot British tea, it's iced tea. It's slightly chilled, he's sweating like a dog, so he cracks the seal, which we would reseal every night, and holds up the audience and goes, yeah, David! And he's going, look. He's no more drinking alcohol than he's drinking, battery acid. It was just iced tea. And I laughed and I said, well, no wonder he's still got his marbles.
Eddie's death marked the end of an era for one of the greatest guitarists in history. And though he may be gone, the spirit of Van Halen and the influence of his work within the group will live on forever. Just 10 days after Eddie's death, founding member of the band Mark Stones passed away too, which was a shock to most fans. Though his influence and longevity in the band were less than Eddie's, his work within Mammoth was an important step for the group to become Van Halen. With the death of Eddie, Van Halen was officially disbanded. Wolfgang Van Halen later stated, "You can't have Van Halen without Eddie Van Halen," putting an end to this over 40-year band.
Now that Van Halen are done and dusted, we have a clear chance to look at them and see what they really left the music world. And what they've left is Eddie's incredible virtuosity on the guitar. I mean, is he as important as Jimi Hendrix to rock and roll guitar? He's awfully close. He's up there with Scotty Moore, Elvis's guitar player, and Hendrix, and just about anybody. And I don't think you'd have Michael Schenker and so many of these shredding guys now without Eddie. I mean, Eddie even changed the design of the guitar. The way he had the Frankencaster, which is it's a technical thing. The guitar he had that was made up of parts, which is why it's referenced to Frankenstein. It wasn't just a straight Stratocaster. He took parts off of a Gibson and did some various things, the pickups and blah, 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 blah. It's the one with those crazy stripes on it that are at weird angles, where you put the tape on it. So Eddie has a reputation going as an innovator on guitar, as a musician, his musicality, as a guy who designed a guitar and brought that kind of arena rock, heavy metal guitar into the 21st century. I mean, the physical guitar itself, the design of the guitar itself, the sound of the guitar itself. And David Lee Roth will go down as that classic American entertainer. I have no doubt that if David Lee Roth was born 50 or 60 years younger, he would have been in vaudeville, which is the American equivalent of the English music hall, British music hall, and on stage in a bowler and a cane, entertaining somehow, either telling jokes or singing and dancing or whatever, no doubt. And we can now see the great worth of their music with a fresh eye, because it's all done and dusted. And I think when it's all done and dusted for so many acts, we forget about them. And I think Van Halen are going to be like, I don't know if this is rating them too high, but I think they'll be remembered like, you know, Elvis or the Beatles. They're really going to be remembered as the years roll on. I think my daughter, who's 20, will know about Van Halen. She's 40 and 45, and those records will still be popular with a certain core audience of the music world. God knows how big it'll be, but they won't be forgotten.
In the annals of music history, Van Halen's story is a special, albeit tumultuous one. With 12 studio albums, 56 singles, and over 80 million records sold worldwide, Van Halen is among some of the most successful artists of all time and is looked back on fondly for the innovation they put into the music industry. Van Halen's influence extended beyond their music, shaping the culture of rock and inspiring countless generations of musicians. Their legacy persists not only in their chart-topping hits, but also in Eddie's innovative guitar techniques, which will be forever etched into the history of rock. They treated the stage as a canvas, and themselves the artists, painting with the colors of rock, and they created some of the most timeless pieces of music the world has ever seen, influencing many future musicians and artists, including former member Wolfgang Van Halen, who has gone on to continue their work with Mammoth WVH. Even though Van Halen's time has come and gone, their legacy will remain forever.